So, what's up, guys? We're back with the Jay and Kaskian podcast. It's weird doing a plug sounding thing, but we've got a new friend here. Hey, new friend.
Hello.
What's up, Jordan?
How are you guys doing today?
Super duper. Thank you for coming and joining us on the podcast. It's super duper.
Episode number 31.
Oh, wow.
This is super special.
So you guys are established. Well done.
Super special. 31.
Our whole viewpoint was like, as long as we don't stop, we're gonna count it as a victory. Because one of our big problems was we always start and then stop. So we're just like, even if it sucks, we're gonna keep going.
It's like being you can't stop middle. It just stings. It sucks. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I get it.
So we got excited to have you. How did we get the connection? Is this another
Justin.
So your trainer?
Yes. He recommended you, Jordan, to me and be like, this dude's got an interesting story. He's hilarious as shit. Get him on.
Dope.
Fun.
Oh man,
So
now there's pressure.
So how do you know Justin?
So Justin does a lot of work with veterans and adaptive athletes. So
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So actually, a few of the veterans that he works with play on the Milwaukee wheelchair lacrosse team, and I went out for the wheelchair lacrosse team. Got to meet them. They wanted to do some biometric testing, and Plez was there to run me through the testing. And he's like, "Man, I like your style. Why don't you come work out with me?" And I'm like, "All right, cool."
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, nice. That's cool.
He seems to have that vibe. He just goes around, he finds people, and he's like, "You got good vibes. I like your shit. I'm gonna personally take you on." It's like, oh,
Yeah, he
cool.
Did the same thing to me. He did the exact same thing to me. It's
Friends
like,
being
oh,
friends.
you were going through some crazy shit. I want to work with you.
Like, let's slip it in.
Right.
Yeah. So your story is unlike anyone else's that I've ever personally
I
met.
heard a little bit. I was like, at one point in time, you were a fully functioning human physically,
Absolutely.
and something happened with like a frisbee or
He didn't get in all the details.
No, we want your version of
Yeah,
it. It would be
yeah.
great.
So
Details.
when I was 19, I was a Division II college football player on a partial scholarship at a really small rinky-dink Division II college.
Yeah.
And then I was around my hometown, and some friends were in a parking lot just messing around, and they'd thrown a Rolfing disc up on top of a building. And I'm like, man, I'm 19. I can go get that. That's easy.
Yeah.
So I go around to the front of the building, climb up the rock face, jump down from one building to the next where the Frisbee's at, and then get the Frisbee off. And I go back and not realizing like the buildings were a little bit farther apart than I expected. But when I jumped down, it was easy and I couldn't jump back up. So I went to the far side of the building. There were some trees there, and I'm like, and they're like 5 feet from the building. I'm like, oh, that's super easy. I can make that jump any day. Turns out, can't make it every day. So I ended up falling about 30 feet, falling through the tree, and I ended up landing on my back and breaking my back, and suffered a spinal cord injury and a paralyzed from just above the belly button down. So I can't move my legs, can't feel my legs or anything like that.
Holy
Damn.
shit, man.
Yeah.
Damn. That's a like I've had like occasional like falls, and like I've sprained both of my ankles like multiple times, like to the point that I had to be on crutches and shit.
Right.
But that's like the max to my degree of the shit that has
What was your
gone down me.
process? What was your process like in
Yeah, like after
coming to
that
terms
happened
with?
Well, and to get to Jordan's point a little bit earlier, everybody has their thing where something worse could have happened. Like I've got a couple friends that I got one friend, he dove into a stony bottom lake head first, 6 feet of water. He should have broke his neck. He compressed his vertebrae, and he actually had to get them fused together. And I'm like, man, like you could have been a sip and puff quadriplegic wheelchair, but you got lucky.
Yeah.
I've know people, like you hear stories of the people that have fallen out of planes and their parachute didn't open, but somehow they walked away.
Yeah.
I mean, life's just about how you get caught, and sometimes it's an okay break, sometimes it's less good.
Yeah.
So realistically, so my process for like recovery, I've always been like, all right, what's the next step? What's the next step kind of person growing up and everything like that. So after I got hurt, I stayed in my local hospital for 10 days, and they wanted to do surgery to either crack my ribs open, move my lung out of the way, put some rods in there, risk infection, put everything back together, and then stabilize my back that way. Or they wanted me to lay in a hospital bed for 3 months while the vertebrae reconnected there.
Yeah.
You know, we got the broken bone, so it healed up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, those suck.
Yeah.
So we got some. I have some aunts down in Chicago, and they're like, where you live which is rural northwest Minnesota. they deal with spinal cords maybe once a year, spinal cord injuries. And like in Chicago, it's daily. Why don't you come down here? They know a little bit more what they're doing. We'll see if we can work with your insurance and figure it out. Thankfully, we were able to figure it out, get an air ambulance down there. Went down there and they gave me the first two options, plus a third option of just cutting my back open, putting some rods in through the back and stitching it up. Still risking an infection, but you know, it's a lot less invasive. Don't have to move a lung out of the way. Don't have to lay in bed for 3 months.
Yeah. All of those options sound terrifying.
Yeah. To deal with that at such a young age too. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, at 19, like we definitely don't always make the best decisions.
Right. Yeah.
Like I haven't met a single person that's, you know, 20, 30, 40 years old that at 16, 15, 16, whatever, that they like the person who they were completely. And then so I got the rods put in, and then I went over to RIC, which is now Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, and did there, which actually at that point was the #1 rehab in the nation for spinal cord injuries. So they did really, really good work, 5 weeks, which was typically faster than normal. They were like, hey, we can't teach you anything more. You got to get out. I'm like, dang. So I guess going and living back in rural Northwest Minnesota is the rest of life for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, there were definitely a bunch of highs and lows through the therapy there, through that 5 weeks there. Had some family around, which was really nice. So got to, you know, have some familiar faces that were around. But all of a sudden, like when you have to physically lift your leg to put it into your tub, like it was horrible. That was one of the main times I remember just breaking down in tears and being like, damn, this is my life.
This is my life now.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually the first horrible thing that I remember, not that we want to key on horrible things, I guess, is I was in a hospital room by myself. My parents had gone out to eat with my aunts out in Chicago, went and got some good thin crust pizza. Chicago's known for it, as well as a deep dish. And then the doctor comes in, he's like, you're paralyzed, you're never going to walk again. All we can do is stabilize your back. I'm like, damn. And then he left and some nurses came in and were like, yeah, we need your room. We're going to go put you in the hallway. So
what?
It was a really busy hospital. So they needed somebody with maybe better insurance. I don't know.
Yeah.
They needed it. So they put me out in the hallway for like 2-3 hours right after they're like, hey, you're crippled forever. Good luck. And then my parents and everybody was gone out to eat. And then after about 2-3 hours, they moved me into like a community room where there's like 8 people in the room. And then it was nighttime. And finally, like my parents come into the room like, yeah, we lost you. We couldn't find you for, like, they didn't know where you were.
Jesus,
like,
fuck.
Yeah, it was definitely a bad bunch of hours there.
Yeah, I know.
Dude, I can't even imagine.
Like hospital life is like a damn. It's such a mess, especially in busy hospitals. It's like people end up getting just like pushed to the side so quickly.
Right, and I mean, no fault of their own. Like, people need.
There's, you know, it's like, hey, this guy is, you know, obviously not going to die right now, so so we just gotta, you know, put you in this zone, whatever.
Right.
But yeah, that's it. That's insane.
That's so much more than I think most people deal with, and yet most people, I think, are caught in their like, oh, my life is so hard, my life is so shit, I'm a victim.
Right.
And you've had all of this occur to you, and honestly, you're way, I hope this doesn't sound bad, but you're way better than I thought that we were going to be getting. I thought we were going to be meeting someone who, like, we had to like care for or anything. You just rolled in here, you were like, nah, I got this. I got to go do this. You got to take care of this. Just taking care of business, doing my shit. And it's like,
and then broke your toilet seat.
I mean, toilet seats break. Shit happens. It probably just needed a new one anyways.
Yeah.
And that's more of a design thing about the house anyways.
And I think that might be a bit of a like stigma that a lot of people, you know.
Yeah, it's a really unfair one, but I mean, if you don't have any perspective about it.
There's something, you know, like some sort of something different about your needs as a person. Like you automatically assume like, oh, this person can't do certain things or do whatever.
Well,
you know?
Somebody that's in a wheelchair is typically associated with either geriatric or cognitive disabilities.
Which is so stupid. And I'm sorry that I had that in my brain initially, because it was like an assumption, but you rolled in here and you're like, you're as awesome as any other guest.
Well, but tell me that I knew anything about wheelchair life before I ended up in wheelchair life. Like there was a kid born with spina bifida who actually was a heck of an athlete. in my high school, and I'm just like, all right, cool, kid in a wheelchair. Go do your thing, man. Like, and I never really associated with the kid. And I'm like, all right, like, you're around. I know that you're around, but like, I didn't know anything about wheelchair life before. Ended up in a wheelchair.
Right.
So, you know, whatever books are out there, like, you just don't know anything until you're in it.
Yeah, for sure. That's actually, before we continue, I have more questions about like your like the things that happen like right when all this happened to you. But the first thing I was curious about, like, what are some things that people, I guess in general, wouldn't think like it like would make your life difficult, like just some random things like that you wouldn't expect, like having to be in a wheelchair. Like, what are some of the like, struggles, I guess, in a way?
I guess one of them was like our bathroom. You can get in with a wheelchair, but to get out with a wheelchair is
right. Well, and so a couple of struggles are just fitting in. Like, is a hallway or bathroom big enough? Is you know, can I get into a bedroom? Like, there's we actually went and looked at apartments, me and my girlfriend, and we went in there. I couldn't fit into the bedroom because it was like a 1930s building where the door frame was like 18 inches wide. I'm like,
this might not work.
Right, cool. What was hilarious is the woman showing us was like, okay, well, we'll move on into the living room since you can't fit in the bedroom. And I'm like, am I going to sleep in the living room? Like, oh my God.
Yeah. It's like, obviously this isn't going to work.
This is the no-go.
And she was just like, this isn't going to faze me. We're moving on.
Hey, sales tactic. Just keep moving.
Yeah. You know what? You sold me. Got it.
Your confidence really convinced me. I'll sleep in the living room.
I got a bedroom in the living room, no couches. Right. It's all good.
Right. Couldn't even fit in the bathroom. I'm like, all right, cool.
Sinking living room, living the dream.
Right. If I ever have to go anywhere than the living room, I'll just crawl there, I guess.
You know what? Pickle jar. Good to go.
Pickle jar. I see solutions, not problems, man.
But other than that, like going out to the bar and everything like that, it's like there's I don't want to limit it to two, but there's realistically there's two kinds of like girls that are talking, and some guys too. The ones that are drunk and a little bit loose in their inhibitions and things like that, or the ones that like they know a guy or have been in a wheelchair for a week because of an injury, like say sprained ankles or something like that. And I'm like, all right, cool, man. I've been in this for 19 years, so
so stop trying to connect to me over this.
Right. Well, and I don't ever want to be that guy. Like, I've got a couple friends that like if me and him, he's on Team USA basketball, name drop.
Damn.
But like when he and I go out to the bars, people are like, oh, hey, there's a speed limit on the sidewalk. We're like, all right, cool. And he's gotten so unhappy with that, he'll turn around and be like, and tell him to fuck off. I'm like, just move on about our day, man. We're gonna go get drinks. We're gonna try and go talk to girls. We'll see if it works. Like, just why let something stupid and small ruin your day? Like, either they're dumb or they mean well, and I don't want to associate with a dumb person. Or if they mean well, hey, thanks, appreciate it, we'll move on.
They just
for sure.
But other than that, when you start to drink, all of a sudden when you break the seal, like you gotta pee a lot more consistently. That beer just goes through. Other than that, like grocery stores, the top shelf. Just
I would never even fucking think of that, but
right.
Yeah, that's another thing.
It's a nice way to meet a cute girl, because I'm like, all right, cool.
I love how everything has this positive spin of like, but cute girls, yo.
Well, the cool thing is, so like girls aren't always tall. So if you're like, oh, hey, I need a tall girl around, she's like, me? I'm like, yeah, you. So I'm like, like you can figure out how to finesse it. For sure. Other than that, like picked up driving is pretty easy. Left-hand turns are a little bit more difficult because my hand control's on the left, and when I turn to the left, my other hand goes to the left, and then the force of the centripetal force is pushing me out. So I, like the first time I ever tried, like I just fell over. The person I was training with was like, "All right, take a right turn, take a right turn, take a right turn." I'm like, "Why? We got to go left, huh?" She's like, "Are you ready for it?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Left, sure.
And then left, and I just fell over, and she just put her hand on my shoulder and just all right. So that's why.
Yeah, I was actually curious about that. There's like actual hand controls. Like, is it like almost like on a 4-wheeler? Like it would be like a
that'd be sweet.
Like a lever or like a.
So there's actually manual cars that would have something like that. But just for the automatic that I drive, I'd actually just push down for gas. And then forward for brakes. So like if I have to crash into somebody, like I'm going to be hitting the brake.
Okay.
So Excuse me. But yeah, just down for gas and super easy. So my brother most recently tried to drive my car, and he's like, man, I just can't figure out my feet and my hands and everything together. And I'm like, all right, cool. But I had a bunch of other friends that are like, either this is the biggest mind fuck that we've ever done, which, you know, you can't disassociate your feet and hands and everything, or this is the funnest video game I've ever played. Yeah. So, right. And so a lot of my friends are like, man, dude, how much are these? I'm like, too expensive, man. It's like $1,300 installed. And I'm like,
damn.
Right. So yeah, the cost of living for wheelchair life is not awesome.
Right. I'm sure there's a lot of things that you have to get like specifically so you can function daily and things that you got to do.
There's definitely a couple things. Like the chair I'm in right now is just absolutely busted. Like I'm trying to figure out insurance. It's 7 years old. Like I've said earlier, it's the front caster's being held on by epoxy. The left wheel's about ready to fall off. The backrest is broken. Yeah. And so like that, in order to get a brand new chair, it's going to be about $8,000.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Right. So it's titanium. They got it had all the bells and whistles when it was brand new.
Yeah.
Broke some of those things off. Oops. Mm-hmm. But other things, like if you want to be active, like you might need a racing chair, which is, you know, a $3,000 piece of equipment. If you want to just be recreational active and get a hand cycle, like that's another. I know a veteran. He has a $20,000 carbon fiber hand cycle.
Damn.
Right. And so and thankfully because he's a veteran, he's able to get some help with that. But yeah, crazy expensive if you want to be active, but you have to figure it out.
Right. So like what are some of the like biggest differences between like an active wheelchair versus a normal daily driver, I guess you could say?
So the everyday, we call it everyday chair, typically you'll have like a pouch on it. You'll have not really a foam proper, not much protective stuff. Some people that were probably born with a disability have like a seat belt and anti-tip wheels and things like that. Yeah. I've graduated from that like probably the day I came home. Yeah. But other than that, in a sport chair, like a tennis chair, basketball chair, softball, lacrosse are very similar, and rugby, the wheels are tilted, they're slanted at an angle, so it gives you more stability and a little bit quicker ability to spin. Okay. And then typically you have your feet protected behind a bar. And then there's a strapping system. Like so in my basketball chair, I'm strapped at my hips, at my waist, at my knees, and at my feet. So you want to actually become one with your chair. So it's like your pair of shoes. If you're going to go running, you want your shoes to be tight on you, and you want everything to be a piece of you. So
interesting,
right? For sure.
And then like the racing chair, like I've actually done a handful of marathons, and honestly, I was not a runner before my injury, but with the wheels and everything, low friction, it makes it a little bit easier. Yeah. and you try and find your avenues wherever you can. Because everybody needs their outlet. Like some people like to be on their own, just be in nature. There's some off-road mountain bikes mountain cycles, I think you should call them, for somebody that's like that. There's actually downhill skis, there's water skis, like there's a lot of cool things out there.
That's really cool. Yeah,
that's really cool.
The whole thing's been built out, and you have options for that stuff. I mean, it sucks dick that it's so expensive, right? But I mean, something.
Thankfully, there's a lot of good grants out there, like Kelly Brush, Challenge Athlete. Like they fundraise like crazy. Rest their souls. Robin Williams and Kobe Bryant were huge with the Challenge Athlete Foundation. Yeah. And like there's just a lot of like bigger names that are associated with with some of these grants, and it really helps. I think the Challenge Athlete gives out multiple millions of dollars in grants every year.
Yeah,
damn, nice. That's amazing.
That's super awesome. That's actually something that I've like thought about, like when we get to a point where like we have some kind of audience. I would like to do charity stuff.
That would be amazing.
I would like to do charity stuff with this, because I mean we only get a couple hundred viewers or whatever, but I mean like even still that's.
I mean someday it might be more, and if anything. Gotta leverage.
What about someday? Why not? Guaranteed one day will be more. Not someday, one day.
One day.
I like your mindset so much, and I can't help but wonder if was this like, did you build up this mindset, and then when life changed so drastically, did you just adapt, or did you have to rebuild it from nothing?
So like I'm the youngest of three boys, and I got to watch my older brothers get beat up or run in with my dad or anything like that. And so like I learned a lot by just sitting back and paying attention. And I've always been like, all right, whatever comes through, like just get it done, because that's what has to get done. And so my supervising doctor at RIC pulled my parents aside and we're like, does he not depressed, or like what is going on? Does he put on just like a show for us that he's actually like positive right now? Because he should be depressed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's the next thing. Like, yeah, I'm gonna have some downtimes, but at the same time, why do you want to dwell in your bad when
Right.
I love it.
when there's your next day?
Right. It's like just what a lot of people call radical acceptance or whatever. It's like, well, this is what it is now, and I got to deal with it. So I'm not going to sit and pout. I'm not going to deal with that. I'm going to like, what can I do?
Right.
What's the next step? What can I do? How can I live my life from here forward?
It's such a badass move when you can do that radical acceptance shit in any situation.
It's good, and because I'm sure there's, like you were saying before we started, there's a lot of people that end up in your position that don't have that same mindset. That get trapped in the depressive mind state and the like. Hyper focusing on the things they can't do rather than the things that they can do.
And like I was in a 3-year relationship a while ago, and like once it ended, it didn't end well, and like I was really, really depressed. And a buddy of mine that's he's a childhood cancer survivor, was like, hey man, you'll see what you want to see. If you want to see negative things, like you'll think, if you think negative things, you're going to see negative things. If you want to see positive things, like you'll see more positive things.
What you focus on, you get more of, kind of stuff.
Right. So like if I want to be depressed and talk about being depressed and all this stuff every single day for 4 or 5 years, like I guarantee I'm going to be depressed, and I'm probably going to get a dependency on it, because people, and especially if I'm posting on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that, people are going to sympathize, and all of a sudden then you feed on that, and then you're like, man, this depression fuels me.
This is my identity now.
Right. And it's horrible. Like people don't realize like it's okay to be depressed. You can be depressed, but at some point, do you want to stay depressed, or do you want to move past this and start getting one day better at a time?
Yeah, and then like you have to have a plan. Like you have to have
and a support network
a plan, a support network, and understanding that there's always a path out. It's just a matter of finding it and then devoting yourself to that plan. Right. To getting out of that mental zone.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure that like you said, like when all of this first went down for you, it was probably like almost like you had to. Was there an aspect of like having to reinvent your like self concept, like what you thought of yourself, or what you?
It definitely wasn't like hey, now I'm the guy in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
Like it was definitely over time. Like for a long time, like I didn't like my paralyzed legs. Like it was weird, because once I got paralyzed and I was in my hometown hospital, like a physical therapist would come in and do some leg stretches on me, and like it literally didn't look like my legs were attached. Like it was so weird, because like I saw the leg bent up, and it didn't look like that was actually attached to my body. It was so weird. So like I would just wear tearaway pants or sweats or something where I didn't have to see them. But then after a long time, after I moved to Milwaukee almost 10 years ago now, I was like, all right, cool. Like sports, cool. I see everybody else in shorts. Like it's not really a big deal. Like all of a sudden, like I gained a slight amount of more acceptance into myself. I mean, there's definitely still some hangups about wheelchair life that you're like, all right, cool. It's never going to change. It is what it is. But again, if you dwell on it, cool, you're going to be really angry. If you don't dwell on it, it'll still be there, but you can see some good things that are in the world. Yeah,
for sure. Another thing I was curious about, because obviously, like meeting through Justin, it was like an active thing. You like sports and all of that. Right. What are some of the like training things that you do, or like sports that you do specifically? Like what's your what zone are you in with that stuff? I guess like. What are some of your favorite things?
Man, like I just like being outside, and right now I volunteer with 2 nonprofits that help people with disabilities in the area. Yeah. And so like I coach youth wheelchair basketball from 6 to 14-year-olds. Yeah. We have a youth team. A couple years ago we won a national championship, so that was pretty cool.
Yo.
And nice. then I also coach the high school level, the 14 to 18 are still in high school level, and we're actually the reigning 2-time national champion.
Nice,
damn, dude!
So hell yeah,
we've done some cool things.
That's some really cool things.
That's super cool.
And then I played wheelchair lacrosse for a couple of years. We took 3rd in the nation out of like
Jesus Christ, man.
It was like 8 or 9 teams. But that's still relatively a new sport.
You went into a wheelchair and you're like, you know what I'm going to do now? I'm going to fucking dominate the sports scene everywhere.
Hey, well, I mean, there's some cool ones out there. There's some other people who have done some extremely good things. And whether it's congenital, born with their disability, or that have acquired over time, or amputation or anything like that. But then I also got into wheelchair softball, dabbled in like tennis, done a couple marathons. I mean, there's not really an established wheelchair football league, but the NFL actually just partnered with a couple nonprofits throughout the nation and trying to get a couple wheelchair softball teams started
Okay.
up. So
Nice.
that's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Then every now and again, I help with our quadriplegic rugby team, whether coaching them or just getting in a chair and beating them up. But that one's a lot of fun. Like, those chairs are made to just go hammer each other.
Yeah.
And because I'm a paraplegic instead of quadriplegic, I have a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah.
So, but they like going against people that are better than them because it makes you like iron sharpens iron. So
Yeah.
So they get better by going against people that are better than them, and it's a lot of fun. What else do we got?
So do you do like any like training, like strength training?
So lifting on your own, because everybody's like, oh man, you're in a wheelchair, you're gonna be big and strong. Hell no, like you still got to work out. Like that's why Plez is in there as working out.
Yeah.
Other than that, me and my Paralympic friend, the guy on USA Wheelchair Basketball, we pushed the hills up on the bluff over on the east side of Milwaukee.
Oh my God, you. Those are big.
Those are steep and big hills. And we go up probably anywhere from 3 to 9 times.
Jesus Christ! When I was like in peak shape for like ROTC in the military, we would run it like 3 times. So you're out there doing it 9 times.
Yeah, the Collectivo Hill is my biggest enemy, but it's a great hill because it makes you better. He didn't like the North Point one because it was steep, plateaued steep, and it's just a long duration of a hill. But yeah, like if you want to get better at something, you got to put in your work.
Yeah.
So but yeah, just weights, pushing in the chair. Getting some court time here and there for whatever you need. Like when playing lacrosse, like you play a bunch of wall ball. It's a no bounce ball that you use. So you got to try and throw it and catch it, and hopefully you have a teammate and you can go actually throw with each other. And if you both suck because you don't know how to use lacrosse, but you know how to use the wheelchair, you're going to be fetching the ball a lot. The cool thing about that is, so for like lacrosse and sled hockey, able-bodied people are actually allowed to play with us. And actually in tennis too. Yeah.
Really?
So, they're at a huge disadvantage. Able-bodied people are at a huge disadvantage because they have no idea how to move the chair.
Yeah.
And so we get in and out of everybody, but like lacrosse, if you don't have any stick skills, like good luck. Like you can go defend everybody, but you cannot do anything offensive like catching the ball and anything with that. But as the able-bodied people learn how to use the chair, and as we get better stick skills, like we both help each other, and it's a really cool aspect of it.
That's awesome for sure. That's something that like that I was always interested in, I guess, was how when it comes to like any kind of wheelchair sport or whatever, like if people like integrate, be like, I'm just gonna use the wheelchair. Like, do people do that? Or I'm gonna hop in a wheelchair even though I am fully able-bodied? Well,
so like almost every other country in the world includes able-bodied people into wheelchair basketball and a lot of their adaptive sports. The United States is one of the few that is like, no, hard line, no. And I'm just like, for wheelchair basketball especially. So everybody on the court, based on their muscle function, is given a point value. And on the court, your 5 people cannot add up to over 14 points together. So I don't have all my abs and back muscles, so I'm a 1.0, where like if you were in there and able-bodied, we would assess you a 5-point value. So realistically, we can only put like 1 of you or 2 of you, and then some people that don't have a ton of balance or height and things like that. So like it actually balances out if you include people like that. So
I see.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. I never would have thought about that.
Developed a whole system in order to make things function
to level the playing field.
Right.
It's wild.
So the difference between, like you said, like you're paraplegic, which is
anything from, so I didn't break my neck, so I still have good full function on my arms, my triceps, biceps, and everything below my shoulders. I'm paraplegic.
Yeah.
So quadriplegic has impairment on one or both arms, whether it's some grip, or a tricep or bicep, or a lot of them, unfortunately, are like sip and puff, where they don't have any movement in their hands. There are some sports where actually those people can compete with like bocce ball and some bowling and some things like that. So you can. Another sport that I dabbled in. It's not for me. It's for the visually impaired. But we have a team in town. Is goalball. It's like a soccer and bowling combined.
Okay.
And so everybody has to wear blackout goggles because visual impairments, there's varying degrees of it. So some people just have really bad vision, super thick glasses. Some people are completely blackout, blind. And so everybody has to wear goggles regardless of your vision. You can literally not have eyes, but you still have to wear goggles. And it's just your standard part of your uniform.
Yeah.
But then you have three people that lay across the court, and you have a big hard rubber ball with a bell in it. So when you roll it, it jingles, and you have to listen for it, and you have to try and stop it. Right?
Damn.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's a lot of fun. And if you if you stop the ball the wrong way, it'll smack you right in the face. So you gotta put your arms out and look away at the same time.
Yeah. Oh no.
Turns out I was that lucky guy that took one to the face. Balls to the face
for the team.
Oh man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's any sport that's out there can be adapted. I mean, there's a lot of cool. Whether you are sip and puff wheelchair, whether you're paraplegic, whether you're an amputee.
Yeah.
Like there's amputee basketball leagues that I know about, and there's amputee soccer where everybody has to have at least an amputation of one leg or maybe both, and you use your prosthetic on the other one.
Yeah.
But then you have your crutches, and then the goalie has to be either a single arm amputee or an able-bodied person that has one arm slung in, so they can only use one hand as a goalie.
Damn.
Yeah, so there's some cool things that are out there.
Right, for sure.
So when you first got introduced to the world of what's the proper term?
Adapted sports.
Adapted sports.
Yep.
Were you like? Correct me if I'm wrong, but it low key seems like you were like, awesome. Look at all these fun ass sports with all these fun ass rules. I love this shit. Let's go.
No, I was like, nah, I'm good.
Really?
Oh yeah. Like
Yeah.
I was a football player before this. I didn't want to get into basketball or anything like that. Like again, from rural Minnesota, like there's a bypass of my town, of a main highway, and so I would just push a 6-mile loop all the time. And then somebody stopped in the car and was like, "Hey man, have you tried wheelchair basketball? There's a team local to here." I'm like, "Nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't care." And then so they actually did a demonstration at my high school, and then my mom made me go. And then like all the dudes come over and just flock to me. I'm like, "Whoa, too much! Like just I don't want to be here right now."
Yeah.
Because I look different, and I'm like, like I just don't want to be.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in that spotlight. That's not who I am.
Yeah, like where everyone's like looking at what you got going on.
Right. And then so they put me in the chair, and I'm like, wow, this thing moves. This thing moves real nice.
Yeah.
Like, and then so I'm like, all right, cool. I guess I'm in this. So after the demo, like there was practice once a week, and this was a bunch of like 50-year-old guys. So like it was a dying team, a bunch of old school crafty sons of bitches. And then so like just started playing, and then learned a little bit here and there, and then wanted to move to a bigger city. There was more opportunity. Moved to Milwaukee, and I'm like, and then found out like it's actually full legit. Like, hey, there's college scholarships. There's like Division 1, 2, and 3 teams. There's a bunch of stuff. I was like, oh, well, that's pretty neat, I guess. Like,
yeah. Was that like,
figure that out.
Were you going through a point in time where before you found the sports, you were like more upset or something, or were you already in the mindset of like I'm just gonna keep moving through regardless, what good stuff comes?
Like I don't like being like cooped up now. It's just my parents' house, and nobody wants to stay in their parents' house.
Yeah.
So like that 6-mile loop that took probably a little over an hour and a half, was just my release for the day. And I'm like, I just don't want to be cooped up. So that was my release, and then. So like I was like, all right, man, I'm active. I'm doing my thing. Whatever. Like, good to go. I lifted, almost every day. Did push whenever the weather was nice. Like it was all right. And then, but little did I know that like finding basketball was like, all right, there's a little bit more to this. So
yeah, like you get that like team environment, you get that like camaraderie and like having fun with people and doing all that shit.
That potential
that's
driving purpose up where it's like Division 3, 2, and 1. I could be the fucking best in this kind of feel again.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the crazy thing is in Wisconsin, there are a ton of like Paralympic athletes, and Whitewater actually produced an amazing amount of Team USA participants, men and women.
Really?
Unbelievable. Actually, the best shooter that I've ever seen. She's out of Germantown. A girl that if you looked at her on the street, you'd be like, all right, cool. Like, that's a person in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
But then when you put her on the court, she's a sniper.
Yeah.
Oh man, she's
damn.
And she won't even talk to you. She just like go hit a three in your face and just push down the court on defense. Like damn. Just an absolute sniper. Well, and she was MVP of the Rio games, when the women won gold.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Nice.
And just,
damn, dude, you know so many really cool people.
The community gets small. Like
Yeah.
especially like I've been able to be in it, know some people here and there, but yeah, the community can get small. You get to know each other pretty well.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's similar to any kind of. Trying to think of it, like not a lot of people invest themselves into like community based not programs, like whether it's sports, whether it's like
teams, groups, whatever.
Like whatever it is. Like I don't care if you're a vegan or if you're a whatever.
But you find people like you.
Right. You find people similar. I feel like a vast majority of people in the world kind of like live in their own little like void, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you can attach yourself to some kind of container, like a group,
right?
And like obviously for you, it was not by choice. Like you had shit go down that like put you in that group, right? But that's you then have access to that community of people, and all of the things you were talking about, how like people do fundraisers and there's charities and there's like all these different types of sports and all that kind of stuff. It's amazing the ingenuity and how important it is for people to find similar people in similar positions and then create a community out of it and be like, you know what, like this is the kind of people we are, and we're gonna do this, and
fucking tribe.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
So the unfortunate part of that is, so like when like me and a wheelchair person go out to like the bars or anything like that, like I'm comfortable with like one other person, but once it starts to be like three other people, all of a sudden we become the spectacle, and I'm like, this is.
I can totally see that happening.
This is not me. You two look good. I'm gonna
go to head out.
Right.
Yeah. For sure, that makes sense.
But what you mentioned about like just the camaraderie and everything, like when I've coached for I don't know a handful of years now, like we found kids like the adaptive kids. There's one kid who's born a spina bifida, and I go back to this story all the time because like the kid he meant something to me. He was depressed, suicidal. Like he did not like just being the only person with that wasn't an able-bodied peer or on the in the Special Olympics or anything like that. He was an adaptive athlete, and he didn't fit into either one of those. But he was the only kid in his school, and so all of a sudden, like we found him in a bowling alley, and we're like, "Hey man, why don't you come and play basketball with us?" He's like, "It's not for me." I'm like, "Why don't you just come and sit in a chair?" And all of a sudden, the kid was faster than me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, like you got something. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, he got into the team aspect of it, and all of a sudden, he felt like he was part of something, and all of a sudden he wants to go on to college and become a motivational speaker and go and do cool things, like totally change the kid's life. And his amount of success that he's had is not super unique. Like a kid that just doesn't fit in, like they need something. And so when you can get into the adaptive world, like it makes people feel a little bit more included.
Right.
And the nice part, so we'll go into schools and we'll go in and do some demonstrations and say if we find a kid, that's awesome. But if we don't find a kid, we at least open a couple kids' eyes, like able-bodied peers, of like, hey, there's some cool things that other people do around here. And it doesn't matter. Like you can be a nerd, a goth, an emo, a jock, anything, guy, girl, it doesn't matter. And anybody that's ever gotten in a chair to play basketball with us or a goal ball or anything like that, they're like, this is amazing. Like I've never seen anybody leave with it without a smile on their face.
Yeah.
So it's crazy what adaptive sports can do to just level the playing field for everybody.
Dude, did you have like this level of mentality before your accident, or because you've talked about so many different charities and so many people that you've made such beautiful impact on, people that made impact on you, and all of these wondrous people just like floating around and everything. And I'm like, holy fuck, dude, you're like one of those motivational fucking like people that are fucking famous or something like that. The levels of shit that you are doing, and I'm like, I'm kind of like a shit. Like I've never done anything good like that. And
Again, like we all have our own struggle. We all have our own positive. Fortunately for me, like because I put myself in a coaching situation, because I'm like I technically am like a token wheel because I get out. I'm a token wheelchair guy, and people see me. And so more people want to talk to me because I'm actually out and I'm, a little bit more positive. So that's where you get to meet some of these people and be adventurous. So it's a little tokenness of being the handicap guy. I mean, if I can use it to go find a kid, like I actually just found a kid out of Racine. His dad reached out to my adult wheelchair basketball team, or his grandpa reached out to my adult wheelchair basketball team. It's like, hey, my kid was born with my grandson was born with spina bifida. Like, is there anything you can do? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So, thankfully, just being an active person, like you just run into some people here and there.
Yeah, right. So, like it's all about the
mentality decision kind of led into
something that we were talking about earlier about like if you just kind of like recede into your shittiness, like into your shitty situation, you're not going to make those connections and be able to impact and then feel like, oh, I still have value. Like there's things I can do and I can still be a strong person, an impactful person in my life. Whereas some people like with another mindset would be like, well, here I am. Look, let me recede into my shit and not become a part of a community or not become a part of a thing. But that's really awesome that you can find kids that are like you said, the guy he was like suicidal and depressed and
he just needed a little bit of purpose, direction.
Yeah, and then he goes and like wants to be a motivational speaker and stuff like I love that. That's so awesome. That's such a good like. A good example of what having
someone
having like a teacher or a guide or people that are like, hey, come here, like we got you, like
just to like hold back the curtain of depression, to be like, look, if you pass through this fucking place, you can get all the shit up there. And it's like that's all they want. They just want to be able to see it, like you see it.
And don't get me wrong, like I've got stuff I need to do in my life. Like I need to finish my degree. I need to get a big kid job.
And don't we all?
Don't we all, man? We all.
I've got to cut a couple pounds. I've got to get a new wheelchair. Like I've definitely got a couple things, but I'm focused on those on my time. But like I volunteer. Oh man, well in a normal year, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and then like some tournaments. All for probably 4 to 6 hours a day, just volunteer, trying to give to kids, veterans, any guys, girls, anything that anybody that wants to learn. So like, I do need to focus on some of my stuff over here, but like I'd love to get back.
But you're putting out such awesome.
That's never gonna go away. That every single person who's like in a zone, it doesn't matter how good you're doing. You can be Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
You still got shit.
And there's still shit you're doing incorrectly or falling behind on or things you got to focus on for yourself. And that's it's just awesome. It gives me like a little warmth in my heart. Be like, you know what? Like maybe like I need to start like trying to get a little bit of that into my life.
Like people are so fucking cool. It makes me want to be less lame.
Well, and that's the one thing. Like everybody's like, "Oh, dude, you're such an inspiration." I'm like, I'm not intended to be inspirational. Like
I'm just living my life.
I'm just here. Like if you find some inspiration in that, go ahead and use it.
The most inspirational people are usually people not trying to be inspirational. They're just people that took their shit head on. They dealt with their shit and they're doing the best they can.
Well, what gets me is like I go to the grocery store and people are like, "You want to help?" I'm like, "No, I'm good." Man, you're such an inspiration, kid. I'm like,
I'm just buying my Cheerios.
Dude, honestly, I'm about to eat a whole cake. That's not an inspiration. Like, just give me my time. I'm gonna eat this cake. You go on your way.
Do you see what's in my cart? It's just cake and Twinkies, man. I'm like, all right, I'm an inspiration, but for what?
Oh man, right. So it's like, all right, cool. Yeah, I'm going to live my life, but man, go live your life. Like I said earlier, and I'll get back to it. It's like, everybody's got their own thing. Like I'm pretty sure some things, if I were to look at your life, man, it hasn't been the easiest.
I suppose if you frame it right.
Right. You got through it. You're making your thing. Like this is my normal. And so whatever my normal is, I just move forward with my normal. You have your normal. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it's less easy. And we just move forward.
Yeah,
You're definitely You're like a mine that I could go to get inspiration. Like anytime.
Damn it, he's that guy now.
You are the inspiration.
yeah. No, that came off a little cheesier than I needed it to be. Whatever. We're in Wisconsin. Cheese is great.
It is.
Yeah, it's all good.
Fuck all
It's
y'all.
good.
Cheese is great.
Yeah, but no, dude, it's a freaking. It's interesting to connect and be able to see, like somebody who I guess who had a different type of experience in their life. You know, it's interesting to me. It's interesting to me the process it takes to adapt to something that's different. I don't know. Does that make sense? Like it's very interesting to see how adaptive people are and how.
I like the.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I like the tenacious spirit that folks get. Like it everybody knows a story when something bad happens to someone and then you watch them like descend into the spiraling depression and all that stuff. Everybody knows that. No one feels great when they see one of their friends or companions do that sort of stuff. But everybody derives inspiration from those stories where it's like, dude, look at the shit hand they've been dealt. And then look at how awesome they're rolling with it. It's like anybody who's going through some like really, really tough shit, it's just the matter of like, I'm going to face it, like what you were saying before, and like your mentality on life. It's just like if you move forward through the shit, you end up being an inspiration, which is
well. But sorry to
I
feel like slightly contradict. But so if you say that somebody's burned down their house and they're still there to make it through it, they don't have a chance to.
Yeah.
It's like cool, they're an inspiration. But I don't know if they feel inspirational because they're like, all right, shit, my house burned down, and either I can go live under a bridge,
right?
Or I can move forward and try and just figure out a new normal.
That's a good fucking point, because it's like they're not getting any inspiration. They're not like, oh, my house burned down and now I feel inspired to make my new business. It's like everyone else looks at them as they're just like, I'm going to keep moving forward because otherwise I die. And they're like, wow, inspirational.
Right. Well, and then I've had some low points where like I was homeless for a little while. Like I lived in a garage in the winter months of Fargo for a little while. Yeah, it wasn't a great situation. But it's like, all right, cool. I can either try and figure this out or I can go home and ask for help, or I can just hang out on the side of the road somewhere. Like, so you move forward, you make some things happen. Moved to Milwaukee, I was able to get an apartment finally, and so
how long have you been in the Milwaukee area?
About 10 years now.
10 years?
Yep.
You said you grew up in Minnesota.
Correct.
In rural Minnesota, so that's just like out in the middle of nowhere.
So an hour north of Fargo, North Dakota. So just inside. So I'm 90 miles south of Canada.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and like 20 miles inside.
So pretty deep.
Oh yeah.
Pretty deep up there.
Now I'm imagining some like deep woods, like 6 mile run you were doing.
Oh, well,
bears coming out.
Unfortunately, I'm in such an area where like when the glacier melted, it's like whatever amount of years ago, like it just paved the whole thing. Like you can look 30 miles in every direction and
just flat.
Well, hey, then I mean things just happen to work out well.
Right. So God's country is a little bit further north of there. There's a lot of lakes towards the middle of Minnesota, but we are just flat.
Yeah. Yeah, that's.
I never think about that. I always think flats like Nebraska, not anywhere north.
This is very, very similar.
Huh. Yeah, I mean Nebraska. Oh man, that flat. Have you ever driven through Nebraska?
Oh yeah, a couple times.
Oh man, I hate that drive.
I don't know what you're talking about. Nebraska's beautiful.
6 to 8 hours of just.
Yeah, the sunsets are great, but that's about all you got.
Leaving is great. That's the thing.
Actually, at the end of March, we're gonna go for a tournament in Omaha. So thankfully, only just barely dipping the tip in.
You get to scoot out of there quick, right?
But it'll be our first kids tournament of the year for us. Typically, we start in October with our first tournament. We haven't been able to travel or do anything, so.
Well, that's exciting, man.
Yeah.
Good luck on that shit.
And actually, right now we have probably one of the best little kid, the prep team, 6 to 14-year-old, and one of the best high school level teams in the country right now.
That's fucking exciting. So this is going to be a match.
Oh well, actually, it might be a massacre.
Oh no!
calling my shot. But no, I believe in my kids, and honestly, there's a ton of really, really talented kids that are in the area here. So.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome. I was actually going to ask you, like, what the age range for the people that you coach are. You have multiple teams of people?
So, yeah, our 6 to 13-year-olds are what we call our prep team. Mm-hmm. And and they're really, really talented, and that's awesome. And then our high school are 14 to, as long as you qualify for, so some people that don't graduate at 18 years old or 19 years old, you can stay in high school until I think you're 21.
Okay.
And so as long as you're registered at a high school, you can play on the junior level is what we call it.
Yeah.
So.
Dude, that's freaking awesome. That's really exciting. When did you say that was?
So the end of March, so 27th to 28th.
At the end of March,
Yep.
March Madness going on.
Right.
March Madness.
And normally we host a tournament here every year, but unfortunately everything got canceled.
Oh.
Yeah.
The vid.
Yeah, the vid.
The vid.
The vid.
The big cheese tournaments suffer succumbing to the vid.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I've got a question before we.
Yeah, go for it.
Before
We're gonna
we
wrap
aim
up here
towards
in a few
wrapping
minutes.
up. What sort of things do you wish you could tell people to just stop fucking doing? Because this is our first interaction with someone like from like so much attachment to like the community with so many tendrils all over the place. Like what sort of things do you guys deal with that you're just like, if people just fucking knew?
Well, and like I hate the word like microaggression, but some people think microaggressions are real. I just don't let them phase my day. But when the people go with, oh my God, hey, there's a speed limit, or hey that, I'm like, and again, to my friend, he'd be super pissed off with that.
Yeah.
To me, I'm just like, all right, move on about my day.
Yeah.
But like people, because I don't think microaggressions are real.
You mean like kind of like a toxic humor type
Right,
of thing,
right.
Which is like,
Like, and realistically, again, either they're dumb or they're naive.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to waste my time on either of those people.
right. Or either that, or they're like, oh, this makes me feel weird because this person is different than I am, so I'm gonna try and.
Right. Maybe it's a nervous reaction of like,
Right.
hey, I'm making
Right.
a joke to.
Which is really interesting.
Making a
which
joke
which
at-
is really interesting how ingrained as humans we are to be like something different. You know, like
But and then like, so I've fallen out of my chair and people like have tried to just pick me up and I'm like, bro, I'm 230.
I hope you got a really solid deadlift.
Pump your brakes.
Yeah.
And so like I know how to get in and out of my chair. Like if I fall out, if I hit a crack and fall out of my chair, or if I'm a little bit tipsy, like I'll figure it out. If I ask you for help, that's when I need help. But just stand around, ask me if I need help. If I say no, hey, just step back. We're good.
for sure.
Like there are some quadriplegics and there are even some paraplegics that are either don't have the upper body strength and they'll still guide you through how to help them.
Yeah.
So
And don't just go grab under the arms and be like, I got you.
right. And then like some people, like when I'm pushing up a hill, whether it's training or just in general, I've had people come up and like give me an extra boost. I'm like, whoa, I'm good.
Yeah.
Thanks for manhandling me, but
Yeah.
So just, keeping a little bit of a boundary.
Yeah.
I got
for
you.
sure. That makes sense. Do you have anything else that you were
no.
going, or is there any?
Knowledge is power, reading Rainbow, all that good stuff.
Yeah, right.
And whatever you need.
I want to one more time. I want to hear all the plugs for the cool stuff. If you have anything that you want folks to like check out,
Like
or
if
give some more attention to.
if anybody can find like say there's somebody who might want to be interested in joining a team or
so the cool part of it is even beyond the people that are eligible. Typically we work with like Marquette, Carroll University, UW Milwaukee with their physical, occupational, and therapy departments. So the students come in and gain a little bit extra knowledge. We're always looking for people that can help, and we're always looking for a grant writer. So I work with Wisconsin Adaptive Sports Association, WASA. .org, and we're always looking for help, either financial help or people that can volunteer. And in a normal year, we need a ton of volunteers for like the home tournament. And then I also volunteer with the Ability Center where we go into schools and do demonstrations. So that's abilitycenter.org or tac.org, I think. And so both those organizations do extremely well. We've got a little bit of a connection with Marquette, where sometimes they give us some gym time. They help with our lacrosse team. The Milwaukee Bucks, I'd love to get a stronger relationship, but they do pretty well with us. They sponsor jerseys and things like that. So like we're always looking to try and get the community involved with us or be involved with the community. Usually we go to Summerfest every year in a normal year and put on a demonstration, put people that have had probably too many beers in chairs and play basketball against them and some good things like that. So, but yeah, if anybody wants to check us out that they are eligible or know somebody that's eligible, check out wasa.org.
Okay.
Fuck yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast and hanging out and giving us a chunk of your experience, because fucking wild.
It was great. It was great having you on, man.
Well, maybe there can be a next time, because I didn't get to Vegas yet.
Oh God, that's right. Okay, we're gonna have to set up another one then.
All right.
We're gonna
absolutely
have
can, because you only got like 10 minutes left. So
oh shit, we went through it. Okay.
Oh, we're good.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
we got the 55. But anyway, Jordan, thank you so much for being here. And folks at home or in your cars or on your phones or whatever, listening and watching, thank you guys so much for watching. We will see y'all in the next one. Peace.
Bye-bye.